organization, management, structure. Bullet journaling is a method of personal organization that organizes scheduling, reminders, to-do lists, brainstorming, and other organizational tasks into a single notebook. That is the dictionary definition, at least. To me, my bullet journal is where I keep all my assignments, events, reminders, trackers, and thoughts. I used the traditional planner type that was given to us in elementary and middle school, and for those years, it worked well. My workload wasn't very large, and it was sufficient for what I needed it to do. However, because of this low workload, I always felt like my planners were too big, and I was wasting paper by not filling it out with more things in each day. In elementary school, the planners were very colorful and were very interactive, but in middle school they became smaller, black and white, and more utilitarian. Additionally, I still did not have that much homework, and it still felt kind of unnecessary to dedicate a whole planner to just have a few assignments per week. Plus, the planners weren't customizable at all, and I always wanted a better method to manage my life that I could design myself and make completely from scratch. My bullet journal itself was originally a gift from my best friend, who is also really into bullet journaling. In the front of the book, she compiled a lot of photos of us, documenting our friendship throughout the years. Although she gave me the bullet journal in September, she couldn't convince me to start my first spread until March of the next year. This is my first calendar spread. You can definitely tell how indecisive I was about the theme of this month. I had gone over to my friend's house so that she could show me how to make a spread, and she had a bunch of ideas for me to try. Here you can tell that we tried to go with the circles on the month cover in this calendar, but at this point I didn't have any non-alcoholic markers, so the markers bled through to this side of the page too. We definitely forgot to use a ruler here. I mean, look at all these crooked lines. I already started the idea for marking in my calendar with dots that I had labeled down here. And here's my TBR list. Here's my first weekly spread I made. Without my friend's markers, I only had a few limited moundliners, so I made the whole month of March in this one green color. These bubble letters are pretty cute, and it's pretty funny seeing all these affirmations because I don't even remember what they were for. But yeah, at the bottom I just have like these little weekly activities, like an update on my grades, major accomplishments, events, an emotion tracker, check-ins, and an end of month reflection. This part looks pretty bad because I had no idea where I was going with this, but I was just planning out my future spreads and what I wanted to buy and things to do, stuff like that. I think looking through my old spreads with so much detail just reminds me of the little things in my everyday life. Like, if I didn't record my emotions or what I accomplished that week, it would have just been part of a huge blur of days. That was the problem with the pandemic. I couldn't separate each day from the rest. It also made me kind of sad because I didn't realize so much had passed since I started bullet journaling, and it's kind of weird imagining my old self planning out my future spreads, thinking that the future was so far away, but now we're here, in the future. It's just really grounding to document my thoughts here. In the next month, you can tell I've definitely got a better idea of what I want for the color theme, and the design is way more simplistic. Yeah, I tried to change it up from last month, so I made dashed borders instead of solid lines, which actually look pretty good. You can see in this month I got a lot of new markers from Ohuhu and Supertips that I really wanted to test out, so the color really starts to vary here. I went for a bluish gray look and it turned out pretty nice, but drawing these lines was a lot of work. Yeah, here is where I got really clever for my calendar design, and honestly, this is one of my best calendar designs yet, and it worked really well with the amount of traveling that I was doing during July. I basically drew a thick line through all the days that I'd be somewhere or doing something, and it helped me visualize where and when I would be throughout the month. But here, you can tell that I just didn't have the time to keep making spreads, and there weren't that many things to remember this month that weren't included in the calendar. Same thing with August. I just didn't have the time, energy, and need to really put work into my bullet journal. This stagnated my momentum with bullet journaling. But I realized that I needed to pick it back up for school, which was, at this point, starting in less than a week. I decided to try a different style of calendar, with a very minimalist design and complementary purple colors, which looks super cool, and I'm very proud of this calendar. I also started to use a different spread format, which made it easier to visualize how my week flowed in comparison to my old stacked format. Through the previous months, though, I realized that I just don't really use my wish list and goal section very often, so I didn't make a section for those things in my next months. And that's the beauty of bullet journaling. It's so easy to customize, and if you don't like how something looks, you can easily get rid of it and change your features to fit your needs. And yeah, this is my most recent spread. It's for October, and I really took that autumn feeling and put it into this spread. With the pumpkins and the letters here, and the flannel-inspired washi tape here. Now that we are approaching November, I feel like it's a good time to take you through my design process and how I choose to make my color schemes, monthly themes, and stuff like that. For this month, I really want to track my habits in order to get rid of bad ones and maintain good habits, so I want to make a habit tracker and a goal tracker. With doing all these spreads, I've started to understand what looks good and what generally works well for me and what's just unnecessary. First, the theme of each month cannot be too busy or time-consuming to replicate on the rest of the pages in that month. Additionally, it is good to stick to 3 or 4 complementary colors that don't contrast and blend into one general tone together. For example, my October spread consists of only 4 orangey brownish colors and an extra color for the labels for the calendar. Although it looks quite simplistic, with a traced grid and large letters, it looks more thought out and put together than, say, my April spread, where you can see that the small numbers and this uneven line here looks more rushed and harder to read. For a student in school, some pages are very useful to have, while others seem to stay empty throughout the month. In my first bullet journal, I included a space for a brain dump, wish list, bucket list, daily affirmations, and a lot more little interactive things around my calendar. However, I noticed that I don't use my calendar pages very often for much else other than aesthetics and getting a grasp on what theme I would like for that month. I've cut most of my extra pages, and now I just have the necessities: the month cover, calendar, and weekly pages. It's usually better for me to include those small interactive things on the same page as the weekly pages, since I see them more often, rather than dedicating whole pages to them. Additionally, each interactive thing should not take much effort to do every day. For example, I have mood scales and monthly reflections for my interactive parts, which both take relatively small spaces and don't take much effort to complete. That way, I don't have to go out of my way to do these things at night, after a long day, and they feel more comforting than a chore. Small things like these are what makes my bullet journal feel so personal and valuable. Seeing my bullet journal's growth and flipping back to old spreads gives me a sense of nostalgia and confidence. I can see all the fun I've had making it, and seeing how far I've come with my bullet journal progression really makes me think that, despite how little progress I feel like I'm making now, when I look back to this week in the future, I can be satisfied with the fact that I have grown as a person.